Human trafficking is defined as the action or practice of illegally transporting a person around a country or to another through coercion, force, or fraud for the purposes of sexual exploitation, forced labor, or organ harvesting. Every year, hundreds of men, women, and children are forced or tricked into participating in the trade. Although much has been attempted to stop human trafficking, Marxist cultural and historical lenses will show that conflicts surrounding economic opportunities, rape culture, and current intervention programs must be addressed in order to effectively stop human trafficking.
Well, the sex trade is a big part, right? Slavery is still a major issue. You've got people being smuggled across the border to America, even to our country, and they're like working illegally, and sometimes they're getting, abused, they're not getting any of the privileges, their human rights are being denied. In Asia, you've got a lot of slavery, a lot of human trafficking happens there. You've got economic issues like, lack of money. You've also got environmental issues. And all of those contribute to migration, and when people migrate,
The majority of trafficking victims are impoverished populations, and in order to provide for themselves and their families, they often have to make risky decisions to generate income. In India, where a fifth of the world population lives on $1.25 a day, some parents have resorted to selling their children just to be able to feed themselves. For refugees, they become even more vulnerable as they leave their home countries in search for safety and opportunity. However, on the way, many of them meet a language barrier, insecurity, and fraud. Because impoverished, countries are left vulnerable and disadvantaged. They have become easy targets for brothels, for traffickers. The slave trade generates about $150 billion annually, and in some cases can earn more than $20,000 in a month from just 4 victims. Although human trafficking as a whole is often associated with sex trade, $43 billion are earned as workers are exploited both locally and internationally for work such as construction, fishing, agriculture, and manufacturing.
Culture is defined as the sociological concept used to describe the reality in which rape is normalized and even promoted due to sexualized music and media. Examples of rape culture include, but are not limited to, trivializing assault, tolerating harassment, scrutinizing the victim, pressuring men and women to be in relationships, dismissing violence in movies, and disregarding accusations. An area to focus on when examining the influences of rape culture on trafficking would be how sex is mainstreamed to viewers by what they watch. As people continue to watch pornography and even popular movies that include a lot of sexual violence or just sex, these ideas affect their perceptions and are then seen through their actions. Unfortunately, sometimes these actions include rape and investing in brothels. However, if one individual can't change what is being watched throughout the nations, the question is then asked about how can we stop sexual media from influencing the demand for the sex trade. Rape culture is defined as the sociological concept used to describe the reality in which rape
If you consider a lot of the human trafficking, the sex trade, a lot of it's online, and a lot of people in the West watch things like that without thinking about who the people are. So there's an economic incentive, and that pushes the same kind of work. With social media and the internet, you've got people pushing really graphic images and videos and ways of thinking, and I think it seeps into their consciousness, right? So a lot of kids, I'm a bit older, but a lot of kids I think watch it and it becomes normal, and then that kind of sexualizing everything, and obviously makes fun of it, and then so I think it's kind of a circle. Best way to prevent human trafficking? Well, you've obviously got individual and you've got society in general. The individual can do things like, for instance, be careful of where they get things. Okay, like in Vietnam, you get a lot of fish, and a lot of the fish produced out there, around there, Thailand, they're often slaves. They're working for free on boats, and they have been trafficked there. Places like Bangladesh and places really poor. So, don't buy tilapia or shrimp from Thailand might be one way. Governments should, of course, raise the awareness of it, and they do. If you go to airports or anything, you'll see big signs up saying, you never know if that lady is being trafficked. And maybe, when it comes to legislation, we already have a ton, and it's illegal. So I think it's really just a matter of raising awareness, perhaps.
In an attempt to prevent and intervene with human trafficking, the United Nations, national governments, and non-government organizations have established and implemented multiple legislations and programs. On October 17th, Operation Cross Country 11, which includes task forces from both FBI and local task forces, were able to rescue 84 victimized children and 120 of their offenders. Although executed programs have been successful many times in securing the safety of victims, research done by the United Nations has shown that the prosecution of trafficking offenders in 2014 has remained unchanged from data reported 7 years earlier. This means that internationally, 40% of countries have reported less than 10 convictions per year.
An international crackdown on a child sex trafficking ring hitting close to home tonight. Investigators in Southwest Florida joining forces with the FBI to save dozens of children from a life of slavery. The Lee County Sheriff's Office has played a critical role in this federal investigation known as Operation Cross Country. The FBI says it constantly exposes the grim fact that kids are being sold for sex in our country and in Southwest Florida. 4 New Corners' Carl Fortier explaining what's being done locally to protect children from such a heinous crime. Carl?
Well, Southwest Florida ranks as one of the top areas in the country for human trafficking. While none of the suspected traffickers was arrested here in this latest operation, an abuse counselor I spoke with says getting any one of them responsible behind bars saves their victims from a painful life. It's called Operation Cross Country, an ongoing nationwide effort by law enforcement to fight underage human trafficking. This year, 120 human traffickers were arrested across the country, saving more than 80 victims from modern-day slavery.
But our primary goal is really to recover children, and then not only from the recovery standpoint, but providing them victim services to get them back home or back integrated into society.
The Lee County Sheriff's Office is one of several partner agencies, along with the FBI office in Tampa, participating in Operation Cross Country. The Tampa FBI office says from their local operations, one of those victims has been recovered and 3 trafficking suspects are now in custody.
When you sit with a victim of human trafficking and you see what they are being put through, like a 24-hour day for us goes like this. A 24-hour day for somebody who's being put through that is, a living hell.
Fort Myers counselor Liana Calderine has worked with many human trafficking victims and says it's a success when even one victim is saved.
When we're talking about human life, when we're talking about quality of life, definitely a little drop would make a difference.
In this year's Operation Cross Country, nationwide 120 suspected traffickers were arrested, 84 children were recovered. The average age of those victims is 15. In Fort Myers, Carl Fortier, Fox 4. In your corner.
In an attempt to prevent and intervene with human trafficking, the United Nations, national governments, and non-government organizations have established and implemented multiple legislations and programs. On October 17th, Operation Cross Country 11, which includes task forces from both FBI and local task forces, were able to rescue 84 victimized children and 120 of their offenders. Although executed programs have been successful many times in securing the safety of victims, research done by the United Nations has shown that the prosecution of trafficking offenders in 2014 has remained unchanged from data reported 7 years earlier. This means that internationally, 40% of countries have reported less than 10 convictions per year.